All right, Gyi, I've set you up to blow everyone's mind as they're listening. Google's announcement at Google I/O. What was it, and why are we so excited about it?
The first is SGE, which is Search Generative Experience. And the second is Perspectives. So SGE, if you didn't catch the announcement, essentially Google is going to be adding generative AI results into the search results. And they've got the biggest change in the search interface in a long time. Over the years, they've layered in universal results. You've had local, you've got video results and images. This is a game changer. This is a big step towards their ultimate goal of becoming the Star Trek computer. They're not in the wild. So if you're vigorously looking for SGE results on your phone right now, as you listen to this, you won't see them. You got to go sign up for the wait list at Google Labs. We'll try to drop a link in the show notes to get on that wait list. But yeah, Conrad, what are your early thoughts? You think that SGE is the game changer that it is heralded to be?
Well, there are a couple things that are really fascinating. When ChatGPT hit the airwaves, hit reality, the tubes, there was a lot of conversation about
tubes.
Is this going to change SEO? And so all the SEOs are all excited about ChatGPT, and all of you have been writing content all this time have been excited about that. I think here at Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, we talked about this possibly heralding a change in consumer behavior. And so lo and behold, the change in behavior is going to be brought to you by Google, because that's exactly what they are trying to do. The generative experience really talks about your next searches can be conditioned based on what your previous search was, right? So you can start drilling deeper into a subject and asking more and more questions. And so it is not a single search that then returns a result. It is more of a conversation, and the results are coming back as AI generation. The other thing that I found really fascinating about this, Gyi, and I think this is thematically, this is going to come out when we talk about perspectives as well. Google is citing their sources for this. This is where this becomes really, really fascinating and legal. They're trying, my belief is they're pushing back against this self-reinforcing echo chamber that is the web, right? So for example, I am a bleeding heart liberal, so I read CNN. And so all of the news that I get, all the content that I get is self-fulfilling because Google knows I like the bleeding heart liberal snowflake content, right? And I don't see the other side. And I think what they're trying to do in citing those sources is encouraging people to dig deeper into why you're getting the information back that you are, as they push back against that kind of echo chamber perspective. And so the question that is going to come up for legal is, as people dive into sources, are you one of those sources? How is Google determining what sources they pick? Why are they? Is it going to be links? We really don't know right now. We really don't know what they're going to be turning for to drive the content that is AI generated based on queries. And this is, man, if you want to be an expert in SEO for legal and you don't know anything, now's the time to jump in, because nobody knows how this works right now.
Yeah, I think my couple thoughts. It seems to me from the examples that I saw and from the I don't have access to the SGE. I'm not in the lab yet. I'm on the wait list, so a disclaimer. But the examples that I've seen, I think this is what I'm concluding thus far. And again, very early. The first thing, and I think Conrad's right on point with it's really important to understand how the generative experience, what they're sourcing, how are they getting this information? And we've been doing a lot of testing on both ChatGPT and Bard, and a couple other generative AI tools, and asking questions like, give me a list of the top 10 car accident lawyers in Chicago and tell me where you got the sources from. And interestingly, a lot of them have been traditional directories. It's been Super Lawyers, Avvo, Forbes Advisor, Yelp. But to Conrad's point, the lawyers that they list for those queries tend not to be the same. In some instances, they're not the same lawyers that show up in local packs. and they're not the same that are ranking for in just traditional SEO, which, obviously, it's kind of stating the obvious here. The generative AI is pulling from a different corpus and using a different way of understanding the user's intent on the prompt than a traditional search. Now, one thing that I'll also observe is that it looks like Google's doing both. So, if you're an SEO or you're a lawyer that relies on organic traffic, I don't think this is like apocalyptic. I think you're still seeing links in the results. You're still seeing it's like I would call it a hybrid experience is the way that I've been thinking about it. But the other really good point that Conrad made that I think people should be thinking about is it's definitely going to impact user behavior. And I would say this though, it's totally new in terms of the interface, and it's totally new in terms of like the experience that we're going to have. But remember, Google's been influencing user behavior with auto suggest and people also ask and related searches and all this stuff already. I think this is another layer of that, and I think it's a more extreme layer in degree. But anyway, I just say that because this is what's coming next, folks. You're going to see Facebook ads talking about SGE optimization for law firms, and we're going to get you to the top of the generative results, and all that trash and that noise is coming, and the fundamentals to me still remain the same. I mean, look, you should have been in the directories already. You should be working on building citations in major data sources, major legal directories. I'm not saying you need to pay for listings. I'm not saying you need to pay for ads. You should already be publishing information. And we've talked about this before, but like I think we're going to see, and this will be a good dovetail into perspectives. But remember, legal in the search quality rater guidelines, legal is a YMYL, your money, your life category, right? So Google is particularly concerned about the results. They don't want people, in theory, we talk about fake reviews. In theory, they don't want people relying on bad information for important things like making legal hires. And so, short version is that experience, authority, trust, these EAT signals, focus on that. Make sure your content talks about, we talked about blogging. If you've been just like buying content and publishing under admin on a WordPress login or under your firm's brand and not you as the author, I think that content's in trouble. Google wants to surface content written by known experts on their field. So make sure you've got that in your bylines. Conrad, you had alluded to, is this the return of authorship? I think there's some validity to that.
Question for you. We're going to come back to authorship when we talk about perspectives, because I think this is really fascinating to me. But I want to ask a question on behalf of our listeners. You said YMYL. Google has said that they are not going to extend SGE to YMYL topics, right? And so the question that I would posit to you is this just Gyi and Conrad henny penning the sky is falling with SEO because Google's never going to bring SGE to legal? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's not true. Look, Google's all this Google I/O stuff. It's PR, right? It's just like the PR that they talk about on web spam and all this stuff. And I don't begrudge them at all. I mean, this is tough stuff, and there's all sorts of, they're a publicly traded company. There's all sorts of stuff to navigate here. My view is this is where Google wants to go. The market's going to force them to go. We saw what happened when they botched the Bard launch.
Yeah.
They know, and competition's good. I'm cheering for a little competition. I'm cheering for Bing. I'm cheering for Altman. And I think that forcing Google's hand on some of this stuff is going to be a healthy thing. I think we're going to get better results. That being said, to think right now, Google is showing trash for YMYL results. So this idea that they only show the most amazing stuff and they're so concerned. Okay, Google, if that's so true, why are old-fashioned spam SEO tactics still working in YMYL? Why are there uncountable numbers of fake reviews for legal local business lookups, right? If you care about YMYL so much, you got a whole bunch of problems to deal with before SGE. In fact, maybe a little bit naively and optimistically, maybe SGE can clean up some of this trash.
Okay. All right. So YMYL not applicable in Gyi's opinion for SGE. I don't disagree with you. I think it is very
And maybe
real.
in the short term, maybe in the short term we won't. We just remember this is all very early. We feel compelled to talk about this. Folks want,
Yeah.
as we'll talk about in the mailbag. People want to know, but no one has the general public doesn't have access to this stuff yet.
So before we move on this, my guess is the people who start working on SGE optimization, and I think you and I will be putting our brains together to think about what that looks like. We need to understand how AI works, and it is really based on these LLM models, large language models, and understanding this. This turns into understanding which large language models are actually driving the AI and what you can do in order to have coverage and quality within those large language models. The recent announcement, there's actually 2 different large language models that Google is drawing on for SGE. So this gets massively complicated. This will be fascinating. Okay.
Yeah, and again, I think the short version of the initial research is get the sources from your prompts. Go to when you're asking, that's top right. 10 car accident lawyers, how did you compile this list? What are list your sources, all that kind of jazz.
But that's teeing into the to Bard and ChatGPT. That's giving you the source for that. But this is really fundamentally a different approach. They're going to actually show the sources, right?
It'll source it.
Mm-hmm. They're showing the sources in the interface.
They're showing the sources, and so in some, this is one of the comments that was made for some of the SEO folks that have access is like, they're like, it feels like a dynamic featured snippet. That's kind of what it feels like. And so featured snippets, they still show many of them still show the sources. And so, but to your point earlier, it's a dynamic one. So you can you can click into it. You can add additional context to the prompt or whatever you want. I don't know if it's gonna be a query or a prompt, but whatever it is. And so in that sense, it's still, to me anyway, that's kind of where it's back to full circle. It's kind of a hybrid thing. You're still going to have traditional SEO stuff going on, but I'd really lean into the understanding the sources that are being drawn upon, and then, which we'll get to when we start talking about perspectives now, is this this expertise stuff. Like, you've got to become the known expert for what you're talking about. That's the real trick.
Okay, so I want to pass this question to you. We talked about Relico's author, perspectives, the way to identify to Google that you are an expert and you wrote the thing, right? It used to be just tying content to a Google Plus profile, right? And all of you who have your Google Plus profile still somewhere, maybe this will come back. But I think this comes back differently. In fact, I suspect it may not have ever gone away, even with the death of Google Plus. Google was still looking at the expertise of the individual author, even though they no longer were using the Relico's author and showing the picture of the author in the search results. I think that never went away, the tracking signal. I don't think that's never been validated, but I suspect that remains the case. It's just going to come to the bigger forefront.